been like a crazy free agency for us, right? We're used to the Bengals not really being huge players. We thought last year was something crazy. This year is even more because when you talk about some of the other things that have happened, they're releasing players pretty fast, clearing out that cap space like we wanted. They're also being linked to big stars like Kenny Golladay, like things that are happening that we just were like, wow, this is like insane. So to hear that the Joe Burrow effect, Golladay for sure, the Joe Burrow effect was real. They contacted the Bengals to see about a 1-year deal. He ultimately ended up signing.
Speak about that though. Were you one of the people that were hashtag Golladay, and how do you feel about it now, seeing the details of the Golladay deal?
Oh, I was down with it. Anytime you can add a player like that, I'm down. You know, it wasn't my initial. Like, I didn't even think that had a chance of happening initially heading into free agency. Like, if you would have told me, Ace, we can go and get Kenny Golladay, I'm like, nah, there's no way that we were gonna do that. But to me, I wanted it to happen. I'm not mad that it didn't happen. I'm just happy that at least it was reported that the Bengals like made an effort to try to get him. So for him to get $19 million was just kind of insane. So for me, I think that it was still something that was impressive for the Bengals to be involved in. So for me, that's what I'd probably say about Kenny Golladay. He goes to the Giants, but you know, it's the Giants. Like, how are you going to pick Danny Dimes over Joe Burrow? But I guess money over everything is what matters.
$18.5 million. So me Chase at 5. I want to get Jamar, like a fraction. Like, think about this. Potentially, Jamar Chase is going to be potentially a Golladay level prospect, is what I assume, if you're taking him that high. But I don't think people know the money aspects of that. Is a fraction of what Golladay is going to get. 18.5. I thought that wasn't even out there in the market for him.
That was kind of wild that he still was able to get it. But
with his injury history, which is crazy.
Yeah, he barely played last season. He barely played last season. So I'm glad that the Bengals weren't offering him that much money and guaranteeing it. But back to the second wave, I think, like you said, Ricardo Allen, a very solid safety that they can bring in, and Eli Apple, another corner that, you know, isn't the best corner as far as a starter or anything like that. But like you said, when we had a lot of corners go down, and Darius Phillips included, no shot at him or anything, but this has been the second year that he's kind of struggled to stay on the field, and that's kind of put us in a bad spot. Now this puts us in a spot where you can bring a guy like Eli Apple, who may not be the best corner, but at least has started an NFL game before and has experience on the outside and the inside. So I love that signing as far as depth, because he's, like you said, our fifth corner. You talk about Quentin Spain solidifying that guard position. I'm not a huge Quentin Spain fan, but he's better than anything we had at guard. I love how he fights in the trenches for sure. He has that aggressiveness about him that a lot of the Bengals players on that offensive line didn't have. So I love that they're bringing him back on a 1-year prove-it deal. Prove me wrong that you are the left guard for the Cincinnati Bengals. I love that. Kevin Huber, bringing him back makes sense. I love the Ryan Finley trade to go ahead and move up one round. The Bengals are making moves before that, because to me, a 7th-round draft pick probably isn't going to make it, but a 6th-round pick, an early 6th-round pick, could be a guy that fell from the 4th, 5th, or something like that to the top of the 6th round. So I love that move. Riley Reiff bolstering that right side of the offensive line was key. It's major. Like Zim said, you don't have to be particularly locked into taking a tackle in the 1st round with that pick. Now, where he's going to play, it seems like right tackle. He's also talked about he'd be flexible with moving to guard. So would love to see what they're going to do there. But the thing about it is, I went on to a Vikings podcast, and they said that this guy is not amazing, but he's like the definition of average, which is pretty good, right? You get the 16th or 17th ranked tackle in the NFL. That's way better than having the 32nd or the 35th ranked tackle. So he just brings a lot of security there, and they get him on a steal because this guy was making about $10 million a year with the Vikings. And the reason that he left there was because last season at the beginning, they made him take a $5 million pay cut. And then he was upset because they traded for Yannick Ngakoue and paid him, or just basically to get that money. And then they came to him again this season after he had a good season and said, hey, we want you to take another $5 million pay cut. And Riley Reiff was like, nah, just go ahead and cut me. So this was an amazing deal for the Bengals to get him for that number. You also talk about the release of Bobby Hart. Essentially, you're just paying him about $2 million more if everything is fully guaranteed. So that's not even bad at all. It's essentially you're paying Bobby Hart money for Riley Reef with that 5.5 guaranteed. Really, you're paying $300 less for that. So essentially, you get that. Then you talk about Mike Thomas. I'm not mad at that. I'm not sure if he's a guy that's going to be a lock to make the roster, but with you only having 3 wide receivers at the time, it makes sense to add a 5th, actually, because they still have Stanley Morgan Jr. as well. And then Ryan Kerrigan is in for a visit this week. So they went hard on the trenches. I'd love to see what Ryan Kerrigan can bring to this team. You already went out, and Zim talked about this. You already got one edge rusher. He talked about this last week. You got one edge rusher last week in Hendrickson. Now you're bringing in Kerrigan to be another guy to add to that defensive line. This is a guy that had the same number of sacks as Carl Lawson last year. He's got some wisdom. He can help guys like Khalid Kareem grow and give them insight. And then you just put a whole bunch of depth on that position, which you really didn't have with the losses of Carlos Dunlap, Carl Lawson, and guys like that. Now you have 2 guys that are in there. You got Sam Hubbard that's still there. You got Khalid Kareem that's still there. Now you're not probably going to have to keep Armani Bledsoe out there on random downs. So no shade to him or anything like that, but you got some more guys there that can do something. And then Larry Ogunjobi, I love this move too. Some people might feel like this may have been the fact that they overpaid for him, but he has a ton of potential, athletic guy out of North Carolina. I believe it's a smaller school, but he was one of my draft favorites back then just because he's an athletic freak. This is a guy that's huge but has a 6-pack. He'll make all these crazy moves. He's replacing Geno. Go ahead.
Do you on your AFC North show? What do the Browns guys feel about him? Because I was talking to a Browns guy earlier today. They were saying that they felt like they were playing him out of position.
They definitely played him out of position because they played him at the nose tackle. He's really a 3 technique. He's a guy that's a sack artist. That's why he's replacing Geno. He had 5.5 sacks, I think, in 2019. 2.5 sacks last year, but it was a down year for him. He's extremely athletic. What I heard, though, is that he shows and flashes a bunch of potential on pass rush downs, but they have questions about him on early downs. Like they said that they're not sure if he can be a 3-down tackle, but he is extremely talented. That's why Geno kind of took him under his wing. And I think this is a perfect situation for him, right? He's finally, and he seemed happy to not be playing as a nose tackle, and he's going to be playing at that 3 technique. And I think he's going to be happy to be able to unleash some of his talents. And it's on a 1-year prove-it deal. So his back is up against the wall. He can't be lacking or anything like that. So all of these moves overall I love, and I can't wait to see what the Bengals do going forward. And that